Hello, Sportsman. You know, I've been doing outdoor television since 1967 when I worked for Mort Neff on his original Michigan Outdoor Series. 3 years ago, August 15th, 1990, Mort passed away. I think it's only fitting that now, 3 years later, we open this show with a tribute to Mort Neff. For those of you who didn't get to know him, he's the man who paved the way for the practical sportsman. Mort Neff was a weekly visitor to sportsmen's homes for 23 years on television, a career that Mort looked back upon fondly.
I've been a very lucky guy. I've had one of the most golden careers that anybody could have, I think. Really lucky. I started at exactly the right time. I didn't have the struggle that you did. You've attained success fine, but mine came faster. Really did. And I grew up with television. Television was in its infancy when I started. You started with a whole lot of guys that were batting 500 ahead of you, and you had to catch up. There's a certain, what the heck, I shouldn't say certain, the whole thing, it's a very glamorous occupation. It's a big challenge. But if you got a little ham in you, you got a little ham in you.
A little bit.
And you can carry on, and of course you have to continue to have a knowledge of the outdoors, wildlife, and everything that goes with it. And you don't want to let that knowledge sag either. Keep reading.
Well,
Keep reading.
On television, what was the most embarrassing moment for you? That when the raccoon knocked over the backdrop?
Well, that, and I think the night, really, it wasn't my show at that time. It was my show, but Bill Fleming and Howard Shelley were on the night they were trying to put the portable fishing shanty together. The ice fishing shanty. And it was supposed to be put together in something like less than 1 minute. They worked for 20 minutes and still hadn't gotten together when the show was over. Oh, that was a bad time. And then I remember, too, one of the directors reminded me the other day, the night the beekeeper came in, was talking about wild honey. And this guy had a hive of bees, which he said was under complete control, but when it warmed up in the studios, away they went. And they closed that studio for a week. I got a bill for that.
The ratings that you had in Kalamazoo, for example, they were phenomenal.
Yeah, we one of the big things in Kalamazoo, which was a great outlet for us at Channel 3 down there, when we started to beat Huntley Brinkley News on against us, boy, that was something else. I mean, we were getting 22s and 23s. It's phenomenal. And I knew we'd hit the top then.
What do you think about the competition? We didn't used to have salmon tournaments, bass tournaments, people vying, seriously vying. Do you think that that's
not the name of the game? The name of the game is a participating activity. Stay away from the spectator sports, you know, and do something on television, show them how to do it themselves so that they can participate. That's the whole secret. Well, you got it, you know it. That's what hunting is, that's what fishing is. Camping, whatever you do, canoeing, show them how. They'll love it. There is a strong trend toward anti-hunting that by people who don't really understand. And it's your job today to bring the truth to them about it. It's not the killing. It's not the killing. It's the pleasure of the hunt. It's for sure.
You've always been a duck hunter. It's always been one of your favorites. Why?
I think it's more of a challenge in duck hunting than anywhere else. I think layout shooting for ducks down in the Detroit River was about the most exciting thing I ever did. With ice on your ears, you know, and trying to sit up in that boat when they come into the decoys 90 feet down from you. It's a big thrill. In my way of thinking, one of the best things on your show is that recipe deal. That kitchen art that you perform. I think that's got a wider appeal than you imagine.
It could have, but you know, you were the one who told me that when I asked about doing recipes and I wanted to work them into the show, you said, absolutely. You encouraged me to do the recipes.
Oh, unbeatable.
And the trophy book, the trophies, people with fish. Yeah. I asked you, well, is that kind of passé? Well, remember what you told me?
Yeah. Well, you
told me one a week. One guy on the show with a fish every week wouldn't be too much.
No, that's true. Any big catch of the week is going there. But you've overdone it. You've passed me in that. Your trophy book is far better television than anything I did. That's much better. That because everybody's wondering, will this fish ever be beaten? Will this bluegill ever be topped, and so forth. I didn't have that sort of thing, and you got a good thing going there. Stay with it.
You miss looking in the old camera?
Oh, yeah, I miss looking in the old camera now and then, but when I see those things now, I think of all the times that I was on that end of the camera, too, don't you? Oh, those were the days, all right. But being on television that long is something that, all I can say that it was habit forming. In the first few months that I was off of that camera, I thought, I'm lost. I thought life has come to an end, but I've adjusted. I found out, you found out too, that you can really live a great life without that monkey on your back.
People oftentimes compare, well, the new Michigan Outdoors is better than the old. It's almost as good. But I mean, for the era, you were tops.
Look,
and I just use more technology, but
it's different. You can't say one is better than the other. Believe me, television is habit forming. They got used to me for all those years, 2 decades, and I don't care who came along after that. They say, that's not Mort Neff. Sure, it isn't Mort Neff, but they're going to forget all about me pretty soon.
Oh, they sure haven't.
And if you're ever replaced and somebody else takes over for you, they say, he's not as good as Fred Trost.
You know, it would be great if, with all the loafing time you have when you get tired of that you maybe move down to Lansing, get a little condominium, and we can do the Mort and Fred show every week. It would be great.
Oh man, you're sitting on the Dreamweaver.
Huh? It would be great.
No way. People made that show. You found this out too. You would think they'd see you on the street and say, how in the world do you figure out what's going to happen next week? You don't figure it out. The people out there figure it out because they write to you and say, hey, I've got a crazy squirrel up in my house that wants to be a pet, or I've got a rough grouse that sits on my arm and lets me feed him cookies. You cover those sorts of things. You do that. Or someone calls up and say, hey, the salmon are really hitting up here. Come on up and we'll fish off the pier or whatnot off a boat. Anyway, the people make the show, and you know that as well as I do.
Yeah.
You don't contrive these things. They come from the tips from the audience, and that's how we made 1 million friends in all those long years. I loved it.
And we love you, Mort. You have given so much to the Sportsman of Michigan. We thank you, and we won't forget. When Mort Neff started his program back in 1951, everything was done on film. In fact, these cameras here are 2 that we have at our museum. They're ones that were used on the original Michigan Outdoors show. 16 millimeter, wind them up. Listen to this familiar sound. Yeah, the old 16 millimeter film. But nowadays, home videos have taken over. Of course, video for professional use on television and home videos for people at home. We've gotten some fantastic videos. In fact, the quality is so good that when we begin our new Practical Sportsman season, which we're going to start the 2nd show in September, we're going to feature a sportsman's video on every show. Sportsmen capture such unusual moments. They're at the right place at the right time, grab their camera, and you're going to see something coming up after I catch this northern pike, something very unusual. Yes, this is a nice one. We're going to want that net. Oh, it's like those trophy stories. You know, they tell on stage where they say, I thought I hooked a log. Well, this is Gunaseo Lake, northern Manitoba, mid-July. Oh. Jim Budd owns Gunaseo Lodge. He watches Michigan's legendary walleye pro Mark Martin jockey the boat. I am excited.
Are you having fun yet?
I really don't want to talk, very frankly.
That is what it's all about.
Oh, man. Neat thing is, here we are right inside of the lodge. Wow. You know, I was just about to say, I may be snagged. I know.
You make me nervous when you touch that drag.
It makes me nervous when it runs. I don't even want to.
Oh,
Here it
look
is.
at
Here it is.
Oh,
Oh boy.
I can't tell if it's a walleye or pike, but it must be a.
You made it run like a pike.
Yeah, made it run like a pike, but we should be able to see him in just there. He is.
It's a pike.
What is it?
Northern.
Oh, it's a
Northern.
big northern.
Nice northern.
Yeah. Oh.
Nice one.
Now we might be able to get him right in here. There we go. Oh, he is there. Great. There you go. Oh. This is exciting. Boy.
No leader?
No leader and on a crawler. Iridiary and crawler with no leader and a worm. Barbless hook. Oh. Well, that's a hefty one. Yeah. I may have to retie some line here when I think so. Done.
That
Yes.
is a nice, healthy fish.
Sure is.
That's a good one.
That's a hefty one. Well, I have to put the measuring tape to this one. Northern pike are fun to catch. They strike savagely, dive under the boat. They have a mouthful of sharp teeth, and they look mean. People find the savage attacks of northern pike exciting. Now, this one measured 33 inches. It's not a trophy, but it's pretty close. 30, and I tell you what, this is a heavy-bodied pike.
Yeah.
That is a dandy.
Well, that's a good 12 pounds, I'd say.
We caught a lot of fish at Gunaseo, mostly walleye, but the occasional pike spiced up the action. Now, speaking of the savage nature of pike, Donna Vane from Chelsea was videotaping her husband Mike as he reeled in a walleye, and there was a northern pike hanging on.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. Got the video on that?
Yes, I got the video.
What am I going to do now? Do I have
Wait.
both, or do I just have the walleye and the pike's too greedy to let go?
We could scoop them
Check
both
this
up.
out. I don't know if I got them both hooked or not.
Talk about greedy
I
little.
don't even believe this. Look at this.
Well, I've got video this time, babe.
He does not have the hook.
Want to scoop them?
He's just greedy. He won't let go. Look at the net. Scoop him up.
Well, do you want me to video or scoop?
I'll scoop him. He's just a greedy.
God, yes. This is mint.
I don't believe I have him hooked. No, he's not hooked at all.
He's just greedy.
He just won't let go. I'm going to get him.
I love it.
There's the walleye loose. And the pike is just flopping around in there.
This is great.
The original walleye was too small to keep, and even though it had been mauled by the pike, it had to go back. Thanks to Donna and Mike Vane, who took their home video camera on a recent trip to northern Ontario, we could see how Mike caught this pike without a hook. Here's a critter that's been in the news recently, the raccoon. A lot of people think they're lovable, cuddly, fun. Hey, they also carry rabies, which has been a problem recently because nobody's really trapping or hunting raccoons anymore. The fur prices are down. But these raccoons also do a lot of damage to waterfowl populations throughout North America, so they're getting to be a problem. Muskrats here, you see them in marshes all over the place. They don't really cause a problem, but they're an important fur bearer. A beaver. Here we got a nice beaver from some folks. In fact, the people we got these from are Jim Christie from Standish Marathon Truck Plaza up in Standish and John Nicodemus from the Standish Sunrise Cafe. They had these mounts and they wanted a good home for them, so we have them here at the museum. Now here's a mount right here. If you don't know what this is, it's not a ferret. It's in the weasel family. It's a mink. Now mink are another important fur bearer. Mink coats, of course, highly valued. But mink are vicious little critters and they steal. They steal fish. You don't believe it? Watch this home video. You're on a dock, you have a bucket of fish, and there's this long, slinky critter with its head in your fish bucket. Do you know what it is? Well, that's a mink, a member of the weasel family that's, well, it's usually very secretive and has a nasty disposition to boot. But unlike most mink, this one has become accustomed to humans. It's learned that fishermen put their fish in buckets. And since mink like to eat fish, this one learned that the easiest way to get a meal is to raid a bucket of fish on the dock. So it does. But when it makes a clumsy jump from the dock, it loses the rock bass. One falls on one side of the rock, one on the other. But the mink bounces back in a flash, and then it fiddled around in the weeds. I'm going to tell you something, though. It gave up on that fish, went back to the bucket for another one. Now, you can see people standing in the background. They're standing by that fish bucket. But this mink that is usually very secretive is evidently overcome with a lust for food and doesn't care that people are standing around. It's hit a bonanza and doesn't want to stop carrying these fish off and stashing them until that bucket is empty.
It must be starving to death, huh, Joe?
Ann Bischoff was next to her husband, Scott, who took this video. Their son, Joe, caught these fish on the 2nd of September, 1990, up in Cedarville in the UP, right off of Grandma's dock. Now, this mink took 5 fish in all, stashed them somewhere, and finally depleted the stock. So what's this mink thinking? Oh, where'd they go? I know these guys caught more fish than this. I wonder where those other fish are. I wonder if they have a bucket on the other side of the dock. Nope, just one fish bucket, and there's nothing left in here. Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell a fish and I want one. Smells like fish around here. In fact, this whole dock smells like a fish market. There's got to be one someplace. What do these people do? Step on fish and squish them into the boards? I know there's more fish around here someplace. Where are they? Oh, hold it. I know where there's a fish. I dropped one when I took that big dive off the dock. I bet it's still there. Well, thanks to Scott Bischoff from Mulligan for this home video of a mink pulling a heist on a bucket of fish. Well, this mink here is a little creature that was stealing those fish. That's really something, those home videos. Mort would have loved to have those on his show. But you know, one thing Mort had every year was a fish and wild game cooking contest. And I thought when I started these a few years ago on my television shows, it would only be fitting that I had Mr. Michigan Outdoors as a distinguished judge. And we did. 1990 was his last recipe contest. Now, I've got to admit, Nancy's bean recipe got a bit of good-natured ribbing at the cook-off, but along with the beans was bacon, onions, venison, and a modest number of flavorings. It's a simple recipe, but one that's a deer camp special, right, Nancy?
For my husband and I, it is. I do most of the cooking, and it seems to go over a little bit better than chili. And it doesn't seem to have as many of the side effects as chili does. So
I see.
So it's real hearty, and we usually eat it with homemade bread. And my husband just prefers it, and so do I. It just tastes really good.
An original?
No, it's kind of a dish that's been handed down through our families, and I just altered it a little bit as far as the seasonings go. I added a little bit more. And it's just been a really good recipe, and everyone really seems to enjoy it. It's for people who have really good appetite and want to be satisfied after they're done eating.
So they tend to eat a lot of it.
It goes fast. There's never usually any left in the pot.
Well, this good old-fashioned bean and venison recipe tickled the fancy of our judges, including a man who's been to more deer camps than anybody, Mr. Mort Neff.
But I think every deer camp has to have a bean pot. So I'm going to go along with the bean pot.
With the bean pot?
Yeah.
2 for the beans. Well, John, are you going to seal the fate here of Jim or what?
Yes.
You are? You are?
I love them both. They're
You're
very
going
good.
for the beans, though.
Yes, I am. Just a lot of meat in it. It was nice. I truly enjoyed it, the beans.
But what about the pie?
The pie was wonderful also. Had the sliced olives, nice appeal to it, looked really nice. Great flavor with the cheese. I was torn, but I went with the beans.
I'll be darned. You want a copy of that recipe? Hey, it's in the August-September issue of the Practical Sportsman magazine. The cover is an original pheasant painting by Lansing artist Tom Phillips. For youngsters who want to hunt, do you know what kind of gun that is? Do you know how to open it up? That's a single shot. If you see this type of mechanism on a gun, that's how you open it up to see if it's loaded or unloaded. This is a semi-automatic. Do you know how to operate that, how to check if anything is in it? These are the types of things I want to teach to youngsters. I want to show them the difference between, say, a revolver here, a sporting revolver, how you check to see if there are any shells in a revolver. Or here's one that a lot of people are afraid of, but you see in the news, this is a little semi-automatic pistol. But how do you handle them and check them? How do you reload shells? This is the type of thing that I want to teach youngsters. That's going to be we have a lot coming up. I hope you have a lot coming up this weekend, and I hope you can get outdoors because it's a great place to be. See you next week. Next week on The Practical Sportsman, it's the last program of our summer series. On September 9th, we'll begin our new programs, 36 brand new shows in a row. It's going to be a great series starting September 9th. Join me next week right here, same time, same station, for another edition of The Practical Sportsman.